Welcome. This is fun. It's just that you're one of my all-time favorite coaches in my career, so it's really fun to do this with you. Um,
Thank you, Casey.
okay, introducing our guest here, Mike Hall. He is sorry, I have to read this a little bit. Mike is a Tennis Canada coach for and graduate of the Tennis Canada Mentorship Coaching Program, which is something I really want to talk to you about, Mike. He's received numerous awards. Probably stopped counting a while ago, right? You have we have two rooms, a couple rooms of your awards and things. No, okay, probably several Tennis Canada Coaching Excellence Awards, which go to coaches who coach national champions. And so I know Mike has a couple, three or four or five shelves of those. The coaching, yeah, TPA Coach of the Year, which is a huge honor because there's a lot of coaches in Canada, right? How many coaches are there?
That would be a question for the TPA. I'm not even sure.
I'll look that one up. Okay. So Mikey obviously has coached a lot of Canadian national and international champions. He was heavily involved with the coaching of Alejandro Tabilo, Vicky Mboko, I think Charlotte Petrick, amongst others, Sofia Zesevich. How many national titles did she win?
Yeah, she won Rachel Krizak as well. She won a
Rachel
couple.
Krizak, another one. Wow, she's got what,
Yeah.
five national titles, I think.
Yeah, singles and doubles, it's probably up around five. Yeah.
Wow. So I mean, that's just crazy, right? That's crazy, Mikey.
Yeah.
Um, One of the things that I kind of wanted to start off talking about again was that the mentorship thing. Um, have they dropped that program, Tennis Canada?
Yeah, that program, I don't know exactly how long that was around for. I think most of that program happened under the late Bob Brett.
Hmm.
I think he was the one that kind of got that program underway. And so I know when he was with Tennis Canada, that program was ongoing. And then after when he left Tennis Canada, uh, I haven't heard that that program continues, but I'm not 100%.
Hmm. Okay, so um, that's the main reason because I was thinking, you said, yeah, the young coaches now they don't necessarily have someone who can mentor them. And I remember Mike, our many conversations at national title or national tournaments, national championships, and one of my
Yeah.
favorite things to look forward to was always talking with you. And my respect took a huge jump up um, when you asked me actually to help you with one of your players. And coaches, not too many coaches have the confidence, let's say, to do that. And so we did that for a while, and I really enjoyed that. And also, um, I've said it to many people. Like that caused me to have so much respect for you. I got to tell you. I think I've told you, but I'm telling you now again. So why do you think young coaches like why can has anybody reached out to you like that and said, "Hey, Mike, can you help me?" Because obviously you know what you're doing.
Yeah, I think, within the club setting that I work at, obviously it's a good environment. We can share ideas. I think outside of that setting, that hasn't happened really. I mean, of course, you go to tournaments and sometimes you talk to coaches that you know well and you might share some ideas really briefly, but it's something that I would like to see certainly happen more often in our country where we get back to a system of kind of collaboration and working together. I mean, when I was a young coach, I think I was really fortunate to uh, be put in touch with a lot of different coaches. I mean, obviously, I worked at Ace Tennis for many years, and we had a good group of coaches there as well. So I was able to learn from those coaches. But getting to spend time with coaches like you as well, I mean, there's so much knowledge out there, and so much that can be, that we can learn from one another. And I think that, when I look back at everything I went through, where I worked and the certification courses I went through and the coaches I got to work with, I certainly learned the most about coaching, getting to work with great coaches like yourself. So I really think that that this is something that, we in Canada, we really need to go back to and take a look at this and see how our young coaches can spend time with some of the great leaders we have in this country.
Yeah, because I mean, I would put you right up there on top. I mean, I think maybe guys, you and excuse me, you and Eve and the guys at ORC, maybe just do it yourselves. Um, I don't know, maybe there has to be a method of communication up there, right? Where with the TPA or something where you could reach out to especially young coaches. Because I remember, yeah, I mean, you've been around a while now. You're still young, but you've been at this quite a while, and you were very young, I think. And again, that was something that was very cool. Maybe not all the young coaches are comfortable or confident in reaching out.
Yeah, and I'm not sure there's as many facilities around that provide the type of environment that I got to grow up in. Spending 20 years at Ace Tennis in that environment, I got to be around a lot of great people, and I got to travel and spend time with other coaches, and I got to come and work with you. And but if you work at maybe a four-court bubble and you have your clients, and then I'm not sure it's going to be the same environment as working in a facility like Ace when it was at Cedar Springs, or at the ORC, who has a great coaching team who can spend a lot of time working with their staff. So I think it's really important. Whenever I was going through my certification, you could kind of tell the coaches who were working in a competitive environment that had great program and great coaches. They were able to get up and have a lot of confidence in what they were able to deliver. And some of the other coaches that didn't have that confidence, normally they weren't coming from that kind of background and that kind of environment. So I think that's really important to develop the confidence in a coach. So
Mm. Maybe we should do something like this online, where young coaches can. I've seen you do the interview. I think you did it with Alejandro, didn't you? Where you had
yes,
some of your students were asking questions. That was very
exactly.
so maybe we could do something like that. I'm on board if or I'm count me in if you're going to do something like that. Where maybe you
Absolutely. I
could have
think it would be really good.
a bunch of coaches and just ask away. If you have any questions or
Yeah.
uh, that would be fun. I like your shirt, by the way. It's very cool.
Thank you.
Oh,
Very proud.
huh? That's nice. I
I'm
like.
very proud. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I've been at the ORC for 2 years now. I get to work with a good friend of mine, Yves Boulet, and I get to talk a lot of tennis with him, and I've learned a lot in the last 2 years. So
So what
I'm
what
really thankful to be
what
there.
what have you learned, if you don't mind me asking? What have you learned from you?
Yeah, I think talking with Eve, I mean, tennis, he's a real tennis guy. He's a real tennis fan. He's got a lot of experience. He worked with a lot of great players himself. I mean, when Ruzetsky was much younger, he got to spend time quite a bit with Greg Ruzetsky. He had a lot to do with the development of Alison Risk uh, all throughout her career. He spent time with Eugenie Bouchard for a couple of years on tour. He worked with Rebecca Marino and, I mean, countless other great players, but just to name a few. And I think in talking with Eve, um, he likes to talk a lot about the game, about the tactics of the game, um, and about how to develop a player, how to deal with different challenges, different problems, how to solve different problems within the game, and how he goes about developing the players that way. And so that was a different approach from what I've seen through the certification process that I grew up in. And so I think, yeah, I got to learn a lot from him in that aspect, and I continue to do so.
That's awesome. Yeah, he's a great guy. I like you a lot. Nice family. Good players, huh?
Very
Got
good. Yeah,
no, yeah.
Justin's out there on tour. He's just going down to, I think, South Carolina for a challenger right now. And Isabel actually just accepted a position as an assistant coach at
Oh,
Furman University.
I
So,
saw that. Good for her.
yeah,
Yeah, great guys, great kids. Okay, Mikey. You're coaching. I mean, you're sort of telling me how it's how you learned, but how has your like if you start right from the beginning, what how's your coaching changed, or is it has it changed?
Yeah, okay. No, it definitely has changed. I mean, and I think a lot of it is some of the things I've touched on. So obviously getting to work with great people. I mean, take yourself for example, getting to bring some of the players I was working with and spending some time with you on serve fundamentals and how you develop the serve. I mean, that obviously had a huge impact on me and how I coach players. I mean, we both know how important the serve is in this
Oh,
game.
you think it's important?
And so I mean, that was tremendous from my side. I mean, I touched on the past 2 years getting to work with Yves Boulay, talk a lot about tennis and strategy, get to talk a lot about how he sees development. I mean, obviously working at Ace for 20 years, getting to work under Pierre Lamarche. I mean, so much there about planning and structure, about communication, about leadership. you know that's not always the stuff that's talked about in coaching. We talk often about forehands and backhands and serves, but he really provided me a very good foundation on leadership and communication and how to lead a program, how to lead a team of coaches.
Yeah,
And
it's
so I think those are.
sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to say with Ace and Pierre and your comments there that it's funny. I think a lot of times, the old saying, it takes overnight success takes 10 years. And when you look at an operation like Ace or ORC, these really fine operations, um, you don't always think about how did it get like that and what's going on behind the scenes. I kind of compare it to, I mean, one of my favorite band is the Beach Boys, and Brian Wilson, who just passed away. Those songs, you hear those songs, and you go, "Whoa, that's nice," great sound. But then if you ever go and watch, there's videos online of him at work in the studio putting those sounds together, and the perfectionism that's involved in all that, and then you finally get that final product. So I think it's interesting to hear you say that, because you just named about 10 things that you kind of learned while you were at Ace, and all of them go into making that such a good operation, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that there's another piece of my coaching that definitely improved over the years, and that was um, my ability to help my students perform at tournaments. I mean, to be quite honest with you, I think I was probably terrible at that before.
I
And
don't
at
think
some point, I,
I don't think so, Mikey. I think I met you when you were pretty young and pretty new in your coaching, and you were good. You were good right from the get go. So don't beat yourself up.
yeah, well,
I think we all get better as
sir.
time goes by, but yeah.
I mean, I certainly wasn't where I wanted to be, and I was, at some point I became very aware of that, and I definitely spent some time on my own trying to figure out how to become better at that. And so that's certainly an area that I can say like I'm proud of myself that I was able to, become better in that area. So yeah, I
Yeah, but
think those are.
yeah. I mean, you're a pretty humble person, so I think you're making that sound like it's not a big deal. But the fact that you want to get better is not that consistent across our profession. I think there's a lot of coaches out there that think they've arrived, and I've actually had a coach fairly recently who is in my opinion still fairly new, and actually said, I don't need any help. So uh, I do. I mean, if you can tell me the holy grail on how to get players past their nerves, that would be great. I don't think anybody's discovered that. Every time I ask a coach, have they figured it out yet? They all shake. These are guys that have been at it for 30, 40, 50 years, and they all seem not yet. Still working
Yeah,
on it. Still working on that. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's another thing that I always admired about you, is that you want to just keep getting better. You're like a Roger Federer trying to improve, right? So, Mikey, question for you: boys versus girls?
yeah, I think that one's interesting. I think in terms of the tennis game, I used to feel like there was a big difference in how the game needed to be played, and now I kind of approach that a little bit differently. I mean, it's kind of similar in the approach that you kind of look at the strengths of your student and what causes them problems, and you work with those problems, dealing with the problems in different ways and dealing with their strengths. But I mean, maybe some of the girls hit the ball a little bit flatter, but now we have a generation of guys that are hitting the ball pretty hard and a bit flatter too. I mean, they all got some topspin to various degrees. But I mean, I think the biggest thing to be aware of for me between guys and girls is probably the communication style that you use with them. It's because you got to develop a rapport with your student, and I think that you probably have to go about that a little bit different way when you're dealing with a boy. You can treat them a little bit differently, and they probably respond to challenges a little bit better than some girls. And I mean, look, some of the girls are going to behave a little bit more like some of the guys, and some of the guys might behave a little bit more like some of the girls. But it comes down to kind of knowing your student. And I think, with the girls, it really matters to them. I'm going to say it really matters to them that they know that you care. But I mean, you could say the same thing for guys too. I mean, they all got to feel like you care and that you have their back. But yeah, I think with the guys, generally they're responding a little bit better to competition and things like this. But you look at somebody like a Vicky Mboko. I mean, she responded really well to competition as well. So I mean, for me, I look at it a little bit more in terms of like, who is the individual in front of me, and how do I need to kind of create a rapport with this player so that there's a sense of trust, and try to approach it from that standpoint.
Hmm. Um, I've been commenting recently to some of my players down here that I noticed around the year 2013, let's say, that all of a sudden, Mike, I started saying, when I was talking to a player, I started saying, remember this, a lot. And one day I kind of caught myself and I went, what the heck is going on? I mean, the way I look at it, of course, a high performance player shouldn't have any trouble remembering things that you're trying to share with them when you're trying to transfer information or knowledge or whatever to them. I'm sorry, remember this, remember this. Then I started saying, please remember this. And I came to the conclusion it's the phones. And this generation doesn't have to remember things because they have instant access to information. They don't have to go to a library and look up a card or thing like that to take out a book. All they got to do is, they don't even have to type it in. They can just talk to the phone and get answers. And if they forget it, they can talk to it again and get the same answer in 2 seconds. And I really think that has had something to do with it. Have you noticed that at all with your students? Like, do they still retain information like they used to?
Yeah, I have a couple of stories about this actually. So one, I had surgery on my vocal cords a few years ago. My vocal cords are really damaged, and I started to, in a funny way, kind of blame my students. I say, you know why I had surgery on my vocal cords? It's from repeating myself so damn much.
Yeah.
So, but it's funny, at ORC, working with Eve, he uses this program called Asana, which is a kind of like a project management software, and he uses it with some of his students, and he puts articles on there, or types in what they worked on in a lesson, or
Right.
what the student needs to do to help their forehand or their serve. And so now he's gotten to the point with some of his students where, if they start going, oh, my forehand, he just looks at them and says, it's on Asana. Check your Asana. I'm not helping you with that again. The answer is there.
I like
It's
that a lot. I gotta, I
so
gotta,
yeah,
I gotta check that out.
it's
How do you spell it?
Asana, Asana.
I hope he doesn't mind if I start using that too.
No, no. I mean, it's great though, because he holds the players accountable.
No, it's
At the
awesome.
end of the day, and that's all. It's what you're doing as well. It's. I've asked you to remember this. We've already had this lesson. We've already had this talk. But at the end of the day, that's what it is. We have to hold them accountable. We have to kind of teach them how to learn.
Yeah, yeah. No, we're doing some of these Instagram reels, videos. Some of the instructional thing, like a lot of coaches are doing it, and there's so much information online now. But you get comments sometimes, and you're probably best not to look at too many of them. But one of them has sort of said, "Oh, this guy kind of sounds pretty tough, and what he's saying is accurate, but he sounds tough." Well, you know what, Mikey? They don't realize some of these players have been with you 2, 3 years, and you're saying the same thing you've said so many times. You know,
Yeah,
so yeah, it's kind of funny that way. But I definitely feel that today's players do not remember things as well as the players of 15, 20 years ago. And you have to say things and you have to encourage them. I told them, I says, it's not your fault, but it's a result of these phones. And
yeah,
it's a good thing and it's not necessarily always good. But, I just try to explain to them that, listen, you want to be a high performance player, you have to remember these things, write them down. So now I've got a new vehicle for that. I like it a lot.
perfect.
Um, a great question for you, I hope. Tournament, the role of tournaments in a young player's development.
Yeah, I think how I try to tackle that area is to, number one, if you can watch the player in the competition, I think it's a really good vehicle to identify problems. Because you're seeing them in the real competition with the real stress. You're seeing how they behave before the match. You're seeing, what happens obviously in the match. You you see how they can articulate what happened in the match after the match, because I'm sure you've had 1,000 students. You ask them how'd the match go, and they say, oh, pretty good. I won 3-3, and yeah, it was pretty good. And so, or they lose and they say, oh, I lost. I made too many mistakes and I
On
lost. So
on that idea, Mike, do you? I really most of the time prefer to talk to the player fairly soon after a match. I find their memory starts to slide a bit the longer it goes, and maybe sometimes they even flip it. Um, so, but as I'm sure you're well aware, a lot of players don't want to talk right after. They respect that you're their coach, but they're upset. It's usually if they've lost. If they've won, they're usually okay to talk to. But if they've lost, they want to
yeah,
take time and how do you feel about that? Like, do you kind of insist, hey, look, I need to talk to you right after a match, or are you okay if somebody says, hey, coach, do you mind if I wait an hour or two before we talk?
I mean, I think along those same lines that you were saying. I mean, I'll see the type of player I'm dealing with, but I mean, outside of 15, 20, I mean, 30 minutes at the most, like you said, the fine details of the match are not going to be recalled very well. I mean, if I'm watching the match, I can take a couple of notes on some specific situations or a specific moment in the match that occurred, but it's really important that the details are really important. So yeah, it's got to happen fairly soon after the match. Otherwise, there's not too much. There's you're losing the point of the coaching after the match.
Right.
It's exactly what you said. It's the details are going to be forgotten.
How, let's say you have a player who, like a Sofia Zesevich or like a Vicky or uh, obviously a very good player. How accurately do you, excuse me, how accurately do you find that they remember their matches?
Really
How
depends
how are they how,
on.
how are they at analyzing their matches?
Mhm. Yeah, I think a lot of that depends on the maturity of the player and how much coaching they've had before. Like I like when I talk to my students about matches, I kind of try to tell them about the match in a story. And I'm trying to get my kids to eventually be able to talk to me about the match in a story. Okay, at the start of the match, this is what happened. This is how I was feeling. This is what was, the match started like this. I fell behind 3-0. I was nervous. I was frozen. Okay, I started to loosen up by doing this. Okay, then I was able to hold my serve. Okay, but these were still causing me problems in the second set. Okay, now I started to adjust this. But it's to try to tell tennis through a bit of a story. Um,
Right. I
and
like
so that's like eventually what I would like my students to be able to do, because they come off the court and they say, oh, I didn't play well, my backhand wasn't very good. I don't really know what happened in the match. Was it your backhand return to serve? Was it your backhand approach shot? Was it, when they were going inside out to you wide on the backhand? Or what is it about your backhand? Might not even be the backhand. It might have been, that they were too nervous and they lost some confidence in the backhand because the player chose to attack their backhand.
yeah.
But yeah, it's really important that they start to be able to tell the kind of the match through the lens of a story, and be able to identify exactly what it is, what situations or what was stressing them, or in what moment it went well, or what moment it didn't go well, or what was working for them.
Yeah. And preferably it's nonfiction, right? You don't want fiction stories after the match.
Yeah, preferably.
Okay. The game, it's changing, right? Yes. Let's start with
Yes.
the women's game. Do you think the women's game's changed that much? Or just people just kind of doing things better?
Well, yeah, I think definitely, the players are better athletes. The players are serving better. The players are, you know, they were hitting big before. I mean, they're still hitting big, but I think we do see that there is more variety in the women's game now. I mean, you do see players trying to stay in the point with slice, or create favorable situations with their slice. I mean, not all the players, but there's certainly players that can do this. There's players that are very comfortable to come forwards and finish points at the net. There's, like I said, there's players that are serving very well. I mean, probably 15, 20 years ago, you could get away with having a poor serve. And I don't think that's really the case anymore. I don't think the players can have a bad serve
Yeah.
anymore. I think that, they all have a good serve,
Yeah.
and the best ones have a great serve.
Yeah.
And so I think that the women's game has evolved quite a bit. And it's certainly in the past 20 years, it's come a long way.
Yeah. Okay. Every coach's favorite subject. What role should the parent play?
Yeah, I think
Every
you
coach
know,
smiles when you ask that question.
yeah, it's very easy for coaches to blame parents and say, oh, it's the parents, it's the parents. Um, and I think that the role of the parents has changed over time because of how people are involved these days. It's very normal right now for a parent to be heavily involved in what their child does. And,
Well, I'm sorry, but
you
why?
know,
Why? I don't know if you think that's a good thing. I don't. I
yeah, but
think
I
young
think
people need more freedom.
it's a reality of what we have. I think that that's going to be something that's going to be very challenging to change, because you're trying to change the culture of how people like to raise their children. So I think that that's a bit of a challenge. But I think what's important is that the coach sets some very specific guidelines and boundaries at the start, and that you educate the parents on why it should be this way. And I think once you can articulate things really well to the parents, and you have a high standard, and you set things very straight from the start, then very rarely, from my experience, does it poorly after that. I mean, really what it comes down to is, are you the coach for them, and is this the student for you? Because, I'll give you an example. Here in Toronto, there's a lot of players that go, to this club on Tuesday and that club on Thursday, and take a lesson with Billy on Wednesday, and take a lesson with Kevin on Friday. And so when you have coaches that accept this, then you're giving free rein to the parent to manage the project in the way that they see fit. You know,
What?
at
Why?
our club, we certainly we don't agree with this process or this methodology whatsoever. I mean, when if I'm going to work with a student, then you know that student has to follow the guidelines. The parent has to follow the guidelines set out from the start.
I mean, you know what gives I think the biggest thing that's changed is the internet and the crazy amount of information that's on the internet. And I think parents go and watch that stuff. And all of a sudden, the old saying, a little knowledge can be very dangerous. But what would possess a parent to think they know the game better than you do? And in essence, that's what we have to deal with sometimes. I tend not to. I just usually will say, I'm sorry, but basically I actually prefer to work alone. I mean, with other coaches maybe, but not with I mean, work with the parent, of course, with the scheduling of the child and their school and all that kind of stuff, but not really a lot of input technically, fundamentally, strategically. If you're telling your player to do something and the parent's telling them to do something different, you're going to have issues. And the poor player is going to have issues.
Absolutely. I don't disagree with any of that. And I think that's where an experienced coach like yourself is going to ensure that that's understood from the very start. Um, and I think that's something in common with all great coaches, is that they're not going to share projects with parents or with other coaches. Like you said, you can collaborate with another coach. You can ask them for their opinion on something, ask them, for their thought on something. But at the end of the day, there's somebody responsible for the players'
Yeah,
development, and that has to come from the coach. As soon as the parents start to get involved in this process, it has to be stopped. If the parent has any question about the development, they should be coming and asking, the coach
100%.
what
Yep.
it is they see.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I've always, and unfortunately, I still do it to this day, and I'm probably starting to do a little bit less. And maybe I'm learning a little bit after such a long time. But I always wanted to sort of educate the parents so that they could enjoy their kids' matches more. I thought, if I could share, hey, this is what's happening here, and this is what's happening there, and this is what, maybe your child should be doing or whatever, it always backfires. Next thing you know, they think they actually know the game better than you do, and so it's kind of unfortunate because it's kind of where you just want to sit back and say, you know what, much as I would love to share this stuff, we've got a lot of work to do here, and it's best if maybe you don't know quite as much.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say that.
Yeah, I've never thought of it from that standpoint. I've never approached it like that, but that certainly might be the better way to go, especially with some parents that are
Yeah, well, parents,
that are.
especially today, I never really ran into this problem until recently. And like you said correctly, that parents definitely seem to want to be more involved in their kids. I kind of wish it was like that. I really believe that they want to be more involved in their kids' life, but it's not. They actually want to be on the court with them. Yeah, and
Mhm.
you know very well that when a parent is saying we have a tournament this weekend or we're injured
Yeah,
or
yeah,
we won a match or we won the tournament, that's a flag. And
yeah.
no, 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 I don't mean that. Yes, you do. uh
Yes,
you actually do
that's
mean it.
that's that's exactly
So
that's
they tend to
exactly.
start off perfect. Hey, I've got Mike Hall, he's gonna, this is great, what an opportunity to have Mike coaching my player. And of course we're going to follow your lead, Mike. We're going to do exactly what you tell us to do. That
Yeah,
lasts a few months and then flip, flip, flip. And you kind of see the signs, and it's not usually good.
yeah, yeah. I think that's an important lesson for the young coaches to learn as well, how to deal with and how to handle these situations. I think it's so important that the coach has, you know, if they need help with something or they're not sure of something, that there's a coach that they work with or somebody that they trust that they can get a second opinion from. But I think in terms of the parents, yeah, it's something that it's really important that the coach has the confidence to be able to tell the parents, look, this is the way we do it. And if you can't follow what I'm recommending or what I'm trying to do, then this is not going to be a good fit. I mean, at some point you've got to be able to walk away. And
It's better to do it. Excuse me. My wife has said this to me many, many times. It's better to do it as early as possible because
yeah,
what I have found is you tend to try everything in your toolbox to get that message through, and you kind of end up almost looking like the bad guy if it goes on too long.
hmm,
It's best, I think, is, and I've learned this now. I'll just say, you know what, I'm sorry. I just don't think this is the right fit. I don't think I'm the right coach for you. I don't say you're not right for me. I say I'm just not the right coach for you. So
yeah,
that's been done a few times. Okay, buddy, can we talk about this Vicky girl?
absolutely.
Great job that you did there. Outstanding. I know because I remember you telling me all about her. We were at different clubs, but it was fun. You were obviously very proud when you were coaching her, and she's a great kid. And look what's happened. I mean, this family. I love this family. I think it's the. I've told people, like these guys have always those smiles that you see right now. They had those smiles a long time before any of this, before they had really not too much, and they never stopped smiling. So it's just so
Yeah.
cool to see Vicky and the family. And I got to see Godie for the first time on TV the other night. That was fun. She was very excited, obviously. But I mean,
Yeah,
wow, what
Cyprian
a
playing it cool as usual.
until the end. That
Yeah, but
wasn't.
but Cyprian just sitting there playing it cool like always.
Yeah, yeah.
And
This is routine. This is routine.
yeah.
That's so talk a little bit about your training with her, Mike.
Yeah, I think Vicky was a very special child in terms of her competitiveness. I think that's what really stood out to everyone involved with her right from the start. I remember when Vicky was, I mean, she wouldn't have been older than 6, maybe 5 or 6 years old, and she would often go on the court and play with her older siblings. And her siblings are much older than her. I mean, Gracia must be 10 or 11 years older than Vicky. And so, it's Gracia's out there playing with her, and I'd stop by on the court and talk to them, and I'd say, "So, Vicky, are you ready to beat Gracia now?" It wasn't like she'd say it with a chuckle or anything. She'd just look you dead in the eye and say, "Yeah, I can beat her, no
What a
problem."
silly question.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it was without a thought that yeah, I can absolutely beat my older siblings right now.
Yeah,
Who are 10 years older than me and playing the nationals and
I think I told you this story, Mike, but as you know, I worked with Gracia um, when she was, I don't know, 12ish, maybe 12, 11, 12, 13. And so you're right because Vicky a couple of times would come on the court and pick up balls for us. And Godey looks at me and says, "That's the champion over there. That's your champion over there." She was 2. So I think this might be the greatest call in the history of tennis, right? I don't know how she knew that. Was she kicking in the womb or what? Maybe she was, I don't know. But Gordy knew. Gordy, Gordy seemed to know. What do you think?
yeah.
Did you know that? I think I told you that, didn't I?
Yeah, you told me that. Yeah, I mean, look, from a very young age, she was out there on the court. She obviously had, the passion from the family.
Yeah,
She obviously had great support from her siblings that, all spent time playing with her all the time growing up.
right.
She had, you know, the whole facility at Cedar Springs, Ace Tennis, that was, supporting her and providing her with various resources throughout her development.
Yeah,
And so
that's a thing I actually, you're the man to, I know you know this, because my mother-in-law, who's up in Canada, uh, told my wife that she goes, "How many coaches did Vicky have?" Because I'm reading about all these coaches. It said that, I know this always happens, right, Mikey? So What's the real story? I know you worked with her. I know she was at Ace, what, from 4 until
Yeah,
12,
she
13?
was in our program right from 4 years old. So she went right through Red Bull, Orange Bowl, Green Bowl,
Right.
the whole the whole pathway. First and foremost, having Pierre Lamarche there and having Ace Tennis there for her was, unbelievable
Right.
because Pierre could, he had the resources to put her with, various coaches. He would spend time with her on the court. He had his partner, Doug Burke. Doug would spend time with her on the court. And so, right from a young age, she had the support of, the ACE programs, the ACE team. I mean, coming up through the progressive programs. I don't know exactly who would have been her coach, but I'm sure she spent time on the court with Pierre's son, Walker, and Carrillo in the progressive tennis. When she was about 9 years old, she worked with a very good coach and a good friend of mine, Brandon Alguire, for a year. So, and then when she was about 10 years old, uh, I started to work with her as well. And, of course, she was still, at ACE and in the program that I was running. I would run that program with Brandon and Doug. Um, I was coaching her as well, coached her.
Right.
And then right up until, when she left ACE to go to IMG in Florida,
So then
which
that was like 12, 13, right? 13?
yeah, I believe right around her 13th birthday,
Okay.
which, her birthday's end of August. So, you know, she had made the finals of the 18 nationals that year,
Wow.
just before she turned 13. So
Wow.
she was 12. She made the finals of
That
the
was
12
that was at
nationals when she
Parkway,
was
right?
10.
That was at Parkway.
Yeah,
Yeah, I remember that.
exactly. Parkway
Yeah,
and the final was at Mayfair East.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, and I mean, she had a good chance to win that match, but
Yeah.
you can't win the ball. So
She went to IMG
yeah,
and
she went to
how long was
IMG,
she
and I
there?
think she was there for a year. And I mean, I remember after that she came back and she played an ITF at Ace, and I remember talking to her parents, and I think that there was a few reasons it didn't really work out well for her at IMG. And the biggest one seems to be consistent is that when she's away from home, when she's away from her family, she seems to not do as well.
Mm-hmm.
And, don't get me wrong, I'm sure they got great people down there at IMG. And, more recently, she went to Belgium. And I'm
Didn't,
sure they
didn't
got great people over there as well.
didn't Kevin
But
go to IMG was that to help Vicky, I think? I think I remember talking to him. Um,
yeah, yeah,
and
he was down there staying with her.
right,
I mean, thank God, I don't think she would have lasted a year without
right.
without Kevin down there with her.
Okay.
And so definitely he's played a big role in her development because he's been there every step of the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Well,
And that's why I
he hit
say,
the ground running.
right from growing up, having these siblings around her and support her. I mean, Gracia has spent a lot of time with her as well. I mean, they're very, very close, her and Gracia.
Right.
And so I think that the fact that she's back closer to home, closer with her family, spending more time with her family, that is a huge part of her success as well.
Right. Okay. And then so she left IMG. She went back to Toronto.
Yeah, she came back, and I think that's when she started working with Tennis Canada, doing some traveling and some training with Tennis Canada.
Okay.
I think she was training out of the Toronto Center and living at home. Um, but she was trying to train and play a lot of tournaments as well. She was traveling. And I think what ended up happening was she was getting consistently injured.
Right.
I think she was missing, quite a bit of time. I think her wrist was a problem, an ongoing problem, and maybe her knee or her knees. But there was some ongoing, physical problems there when she was growing up. I mean, you can see her now. She's quite a big
Oh,
girl.
yep.
She's tall. She's,
Yep.
when she was 11, if I put my palm up to her palm, her fingers were about that much bigger than mine. Mine were coming up to her knuckles when she was 11 years old.
Yeah.
So you knew that the girl was going to grow a lot. And
Right.
so I think during that period of kind of 13, 14, 15, she did a lot of growing during that time. And I think she wasn't really able to compete and train as much as she would have liked to. And so, she might not have, don't get me wrong, she did well in the juniors, but I don't think we saw her doing as well as was expected, but it was because
Right.
of
Injury.
her lack of ability to train and compete as much as the other players were able to.
Right. So I know Natalie Toziat, right, is working with her and has been, I think, for quite a while, right? Do you know what did that start at
Well, I
working
think that started when she came back from Belgium. I mean, she spent a couple of weeks at the ORC last year training with Justin and Isabel before she went to Belgium. I remember talking to
so
Cyprian then.
that was last year?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that would have been more than last year. Like I've been at ORC for that probably would have been about a year and a half ago now.
Okay. So the trip to Belgium then was fairly recent. I thought it was like maybe 3, 4 years ago, but it was
No, no, no,
not.
no, no. She went to Belgium about a year and a half ago.
And who set that up?
Um, I'm not exactly sure who set that up. That might have been set up through, possibly her agent, I would imagine.
But not, I
Um,
can't, I don't know. I mean, I was Tennis Canada
I
happy?
don't know if I
No.
don't know if I know that Tennis Canada was willing to support her, whether it was at the federation or, whether she was going to go and train somewhere else. And so
Yeah, I
how
know.
this Belgium thing came together, I'm not
Well,
exactly
I know
sure.
these agents. I don't know who Vicky's agent is, but I know they have their favorite academies, or they have, let's say, they
Hmm.
have affiliations with certain academies, and if you kind of, they almost just lay it out and say you need to pick one of these, So
Yeah.
that maybe that's what happened there. I don't know, but she wasn't in Belgium very long, right?
No, and I think, I mean, from what I understand, again, I think it's more of a Vicky does better when
Right.
she's closer to home,
Yeah, still young, right?
and yeah, and I think that I can imagine that probably part of the decision was made based on that.
Yeah.
She went over there, maybe the results weren't what they expected, and
So when
probably a
she
lot of it
when
had to do with
was that at Justine Hennon's place?
yeah, exactly,
Okay, and
exactly.
so I don't know, is Justine there, or like, or do you know which coach
Well,
you were
her
working with?
her coach her coach was supposed to be the one, I believe,
Oh, okay.
Carlos Rodriguez.
Yes. Okay.
So he was supposed to be the one that was supposed to train Vicky,
Okay.
but that wasn't the coach she was traveling with. She was traveling with another coach by the name of I believe his name was Olivier,
Okay.
because he had reached out to me before he started traveling with Vicky just to talk to me, about Vicky, learn a little bit about her. He
Smart.
was trying to
That's
know
very
as much
smart.
as he could about her before
Yeah.
he started to travel with her.
Yeah.
So a lot of respect to him for doing
Yeah.
that. And
So that's good.
yeah, but I think at the end they made the right decision to bring her back home, and I mean obviously
Okay.
it's
Yeah,
working out.
she's doing all right. Um, so okay, so then and so that's when she started with Natalie?
Yeah, I believe when she came back from Belgium, I mean, I would imagine that's when she started with Natalie.
Okay. Okay. Well, wow, yeah, like you said, she's had a lot of very good coaches.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's good. Good management, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, I guess so.
Probably the best one back when she was like 10, 11, I guess, 10, 11, 12, right? That's where we all know that's where the real heavy hauling happens, right? That's good, Mikey.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Well, she was certainly serving well back then. It's
Yeah.
Casey, I'll certainly give you some credit for really helping,
Yeah,
again, for helping me with learning about how you develop the serve. And
that was fun.
obviously I was able to pass along a lot of that knowledge
Yeah, I don't know
to
how
Vicky. I
happy.
mean, I've still got videos of her serving in my lessons, what we were working on in the serve. I've got all sorts of
I, I,
those videos. I sent a couple to you.
I
So
remember Pierre, Mike. I think you know this. Pierre either I can't remember if he emailed me or called me or something, but he was joking, I think. He goes, "What's Mike doing over here? He's got this thing. He's starting everybody up here. What's going on here?" Remember that? Did he give you a hard time too? Yeah.
Well, Pierre always gave me a hard time, but you know what? It
You
was out
guys,
of love,
you guys were a great. You
and
guys
it
were a
really
great
helped
team.
me become who
Yeah.
I am. If there's one person that I have to give the biggest thank you to
Yeah.
in my entire coaching career, it's absolutely Pierre
Yeah,
Lamarche.
you,
I
you
mean,
guys were a
it's
great team. You were a great team because I obviously I know both of you quite well, and I consider you both great friends, and I like you said, it was a love, whatever you want to call it. You guys. I mean, Pierce,
yeah, we would go back and forth sometimes, but
yeah,
it's
but you stayed together, and you
absolutely,
worked it out, and look what
absolutely,
happened. I mean, look how many great players you guys produced. So that's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, and still are, right?
That's it. Still working at it, trying to get some more. I mean, we currently have the under 18 national
I saw
champion,
that.
girls national champion at the ORC, and
Congrats
so
on that.
that's a great success story for the club and the program and what we're doing with the players there. So yeah, really proud of that.
And do you have any secret weapons in your stable there? Like, do you have anybody you want to talk about coming up? I mean, I know you want to talk about all of them, but you
Yeah,
know,
I mean, I don't think I'm going to single out any one student, but there's a lot of very passionate young players coming up through the pipeline at ORC, um, and I think those are really the ones that I'm so excited about. Are these young players that are 8, 9, 10, 11? They're getting out on the court consistently. They love to be a part of the program. They love to play. They love to compete. They're showing good results, and I think those are the ones. It's tough to say which one is going to be great, but I think that there's a lot of possibility from that group.
that's exciting. Yeah, that's exciting, Mikey. All right, big guys. Is there anything else you want to talk about today?
Yeah, I think just one more thing I wanted to touch on is some of the challenges that we face right now in high performance. And, earlier, we talked about the parents and that posing as a challenge. And it's always easy to say it's the parents, but I think there are some other things that we can do to, alleviate some of the stress. And, I talk about the girl, for example, that just won the 18 nationals. And she also won the 16 nationals last year, and she's won 3 or 4 doubles nationals titles. And so it's certainly not a fluke, how far this player has come. But we're putting so much emphasis right now as a federation on playing ITFs that the cost of this sport, as you know, is it's extremely expensive for the average person to be able to put a child in high performance tennis and to be able to pay for a good program who's run by good qualified competent coaches and be able to take private lessons and buy the equipment and now expect those players to go out on the road for 15 or 20 weeks of the year and go and play in ITFs and travel with a coach. And like we talked about earlier, there's not too many parents that are not doing everything with their child now. So to ask them to go out, the parents got to take time off work, the child's got to take time off school, and for them to have to go and play all these ITFs is, I think it's adding to one of the problems. And you know the competitive structure here in Canada now has become uh, completely insignificant due to what they deem to be important for the players. It's really to play in our current environment. It's I remember when I was younger and you were here in Ontario and the best players. Not that long ago, the best players were competing in the nationals, and the best players were even competing in the provincials.
Mhm.
We had great players, growing up playing in these provincial championships, and now the provincials are so watered down. Um, even the nationals, they don't really require the players to play the nationals anymore.
Mm.
And for the girl that won the 18 nationals, she didn't even get invited to the pre-qualifying for the National Bank Open. So I think that we need to start building up our national competitive structure again, because these kids need to compete,
Yeah.
and they need to compete in events that are meaningful,
So
and we've completely diminished that.
so it's not a court issue, Mike. It's a kind of a policy issue. I know
Well,
it's not always that easy to get courts for tournaments.
yeah, and that's from the standpoint of volume. Do we have the volume of tournaments? That's certainly one challenge, and that's a different challenge. But we still have you know provincial championships and national championships, and it's not does not seem to be a mandate for these players to compete in these. It's not that it's not a mandate, but that they've given such little reason to go out and compete in the nationals and win the nationals. I think in the US where you are now, I think if you win the 18 nationals, I think you get a main draw wild card to the US Open.
Yep.
Our girl that just won the 18 nationals in Canada, she didn't even get invited to the pre-qualifying.
Yeah. No, it's we you just had the Kalamazoo, right? I think it's finished. But I can tell you, because I have a couple players that went up and they're so excited. So there's still, it feels like it did when I was up there. To go to nationals was a big deal, and it's something to be really proud of and something to get excited about. Like I can tell you that the players here are super excited to go there. So it sounds like you kind of lost that.
Yeah, that's been lost for, I think, for a while now. Back 15, 20 years ago, it was not like that. To go to the Nationals was kind of like that was the big event for the year for
Right.
the vast majority of the players. It was really important. It was important to do well, and if you did well, you got selected to the Fed Cup team or the Davis Cup, the junior team. I mean, the
Right.
junior Davis Cup or the junior Fed Cup team. That's how they did selections. But
Right.
those selections now are based mostly on playing ITFs and going to participate in various camps. And if you don't do that stuff,
Right.
then it's tough to get selected.
Okay. Okay. To be continued then.
Absolutely.
Take care of it up there, will you? No, I had a couple of really good conversations, meetings with both with Gavin, Ziv, and also with Rich Manella. And it seemed to me that, not so much from Gavin, but with Rich, it seemed to be that part of the issue with the tournament structure was availability of courts. So I don't know, how that weighs out, but
Yeah, from a volume standpoint, now I think that's more important for the younger generation, the younger kids, the kids that need to be exposed to more tournaments, players being able to get into tournaments. But I mean, the top players who have a good ranking, they can get into any of the big tournaments. So, but yeah, there is a challenge for the younger kids to be able to compete regularly.
yeah. Okay. Well, you're always welcome to come down here and visit, Mike. Got a room here for you guys, and
Absolutely.
bring some players down. I actually told Gavin and Rich the same thing. If you guys, some coaches and players want to come down, I'm at Rick Macy's facility, and lots of courts, and I can get more if we need them, and great players down here too. So bring some players down. Let's go, Mikey.
Fantastic. Thank you
All
so
right.
much, Casey.
Thanks for doing this, man. It was great fun.
Of course.
Good
All the
insight.
best, Casey.
All right, take care, man.